Welcome back, everybody. 20 minutes past the hour. Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil will remain in ICE custody at least through the weekend, while federal attorneys argue for his deportation. But you had hundreds of protesters gathered outside the court in New York City demanding that the activist, accused of spurring pro-Hamas rallies on Columbia's campus, be freed. Joining me now, I have former New York City Mayor Bill DeBlasio. Mayor, a real pleasure. Thanks so much for taking the time this morning.
Thanks, Markie.
So the ACLU is calling this one of, if not the biggest threats to free speech that we've seen in this country in 50 years. Do you agree with that, sir?
Yeah, Markie, you'd think that was a radical statement, except the idea that someone with a green card on the path to American citizenship can just be arrested for exercising the right to free speech, that's deeply troubling. That does sound a bit like we're falling into the McCarthy period. We shouldn't take it lightly. I have heard these allegations that this was someone who passed out pro-Hamas leaflets, except how come we haven't seen any pictures of these leaflets? How come we haven't seen any evidence? Yeah. So when, we don't, is the next step going to be American citizens start to get arrested on hearsay because of something they said? I mean, that's a dangerous, dangerous precedent.
Do you have any problem with his actions or, spearheading these protests on campus? Anything that he said?
From what I've seen so far, first of all, I profoundly disagree with Hamas. I believe in the state of Israel. But, people have a right, if they want to say they disagree with the policies of Israel, for example. There's nothing that should lead to someone being arrested for exercising free speech, saying they disagree with the government policy. And I think, by the way, Americans on all sides of the spectrum should be worried about our civil liberties being corroded. This is something, by the way, I think a lot of conservatives, a lot of libertarians would say, wait a minute, I don't want to see someone arrested just because they said something. And no, I've not seen any evidence of him being, quote unquote, pro-Hamas. I've seen evidence that he wanted to see a different outcome in Gaza.
Let me play some sound for you. You bring up those leaflets earlier that you're waiting to see. Secretary of State Marco Rubio claims this is not a First Amendment issue. This is what he said.
This is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. No one has a right to a student visa. No one has a right to a green card, by the way. These lunatics are running around with covers on their face, screaming terrifying things. If you told us that's what you intended to do when you came to America, we would have never let you in.
Yeah, Mayor, if we do end up seeing that evidence that he was passing out these pro-Hamas flyers, does that change things for you?
Markie, what the Secretary of State just said actually is not what the Constitution says, and it's not what the Supreme Court has said. The Supreme Court has said if you have a green card, you're on the path of citizenship, you have the rights of an American. So, if someone was encouraging specific violence, for example, different discussion, right? If you're doing something that could hurt another human being, we can at least discuss what that means in terms of the laws around immigration. But if someone's exercising free speech, they're taking a political position, even if it's in a different position than the U.S. government, hey, you don't get arrested for disagreeing with the U.S. government.
Where would the line be then for you, sir?
Look, I think the line would be around the issue of violence. If someone is encouraging specific acts of violence, that's a real discussion. I'm not a lawyer, but I could see that being a real discussion. But the problem is, I think when that line gets so easily trampled, and that's what I see happening here. From everything I've heard about this protester, I don't agree with his positions, but he was exercising his right to free speech. He was working apparently with the Columbia administration, trying to come to some kind of agreement to end the protest. How does someone like that end up in a jail with no freedom and charges against him when he has a green card? We should be really concerned about this one.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.